So uh, I think one question is to go in the opposite direction, which is how do you manage with all the success of the platform in terms of its ability to alleviate issues, and when it comes from the customer side, what if they expect 100%? So how do you manage? Which is not, I think it's safe to say is very hard to do, and it probably not possible for quite a while. But how do you manage that expectation? How do you get them to, how do you show them where the boundary is safest to draw, and then flip over to, because they will have some success and they will be able to optimize or reduce operation costs, but they may have a goal number that they wanted. And I've had that issue myself where there's a lack of understanding of the technology, and which is normal because it's new. But and there's an expectation for it to replace completely, but it just can't yet. And then how do you have that conversation quickly? Because then a lot of people don't want to hear
it. No, that's a very interesting topic, because this is one of the things why I like to be in this industry. Is because you constantly need to talk with customers, to educate each other. So because I'm educating all the time, I'm learning all the time from the different processes that each industry they have, and every characteristic or particularity that they have. So I have almost 20 years of experience in implementing ERP, CRM, and now AI in different kind of industries. And every time that I go to a customer, I find something else, which is amazing. And in the opposite way, it's also interesting, because you need to educate the customers in the way what to expect from the platform. Otherwise, if you don't align the expectation with the customers, what will happen is like, no, what you said, I'm expecting 60%, and that 60% is already high, but I'm telling you that I am in 70 to 85%. I say, oh, that's interesting, but how do you know that this for people that not necessarily know about the industry, that 70 or 85% is a good number? They say it's just 85. No, that's not possible. So I was expecting, as you said, 100%. Why is not 100%?
Yeah, why isn't 100? Yeah, and and everybody in the whole world talks about how 100% it is when you see these models, fake human beings talking and all that. It's like they think that's what they're gonna get, and the marketing is powerful, but the reality is when you get into the weeds, it's tough to make. It's very hard to make.
Exactly. And what I usually do is like make example with human. So so do you have 100% of accuracy? Not necessarily.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So if you want,
every time that you have a call with a human agent, it's like, hey, I'm sorry. So in my case, Garayar, my last name, I understand from my 40 years that I have already how to spell. So G of Guatemala, A of Argentina, R of rah, 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 rah. So because you have experience on that, and why you have that experience, because there are so many people around that cannot understand your last name. And that's accuracy. So that's why the 100% not necessarily is possible, because not even the human agents or human people are able to understand 100%. So that's more or less what I say. For example, when people say it's like, why do you need APIs? So I think that you probably need, so just with FAQs, you are able to solve some of the questions, and you can contain some of the code that you have, which is true. But then what I say, for example, is you will hire a human agent just to talk with your customer, and they say, hey, yes, the day was pretty good, and I have this document that the policy said something, but I cannot resolve you right now. So how do you feel about? Is that really impactful for your company to have a human agent just sitting and talking and chatting with your customer? Not necessarily. So you need to resolve the problems that your customer has, because you are customer centric, So this kind of examples is how I try to tell customers what to expect in this kind of solutions, and having a baseline, we can grow. What I say is like, let's start very quick, small, quick, and then the idea is that we can improve in a very good way. So that's why in 6 months we are able to go from 70, 75 to 90% because we have a reduced scope. We do it quickly. We understand our customer because every customer has a different behavior, even though it can be in the same industry. So once we understand how the customer behaves, we can improve Amelia as much as we can.
When you were talking about the voice channel, how do you guys attack the problem of tone, communicating emotion in the language? I think one of the interesting things with AI is its ability to do that. We've had autonomous systems communicate sort of very digitally to us, for many, many years, and everyone does everything they can to press zero as fast as possible. So I think Amelia's difference, I guess, is it's actually being able to solve those problems with a person feeling like, hey, they got the answer. Because there's a difference between getting the answer or feeling like you got the answer. A lot of customer service is the latter, feeling like you got an answer. So how does Amelia deal with it? It's kind of a difficult question, but all the previous conversation was to frame the problem and then see, how do you get to that point? How does Amelia do that? Because that's, I think, I might be wrong, but I think that's what's different from all these other platforms in terms of all the previous platforms of the previous generation of platforms. People feel like they got an answer, and that's how you get to the 60, 70, 80%.
No, that's very interesting because tone is something that is very tricky right now, and sarcasm is something that is something that probably when we get to that point to find out what is sarcasm or not, like the AI is going to be in the next level, to be honest. What we try to do is basically check not necessarily the tone, but what they say, what the people say. So again, I have to tell you this. So why I need to repeat or so these kind of expressions that give you a sense of frustration. So then what we try to do is, okay, let's stop here. I can transfer to a human agent. Don't worry. Okay. And in the other side as well, because what we try to do is like, for example, use cases of outbound calls for collections. You call, say, hey, you have a debt with us. Not necessarily is the greatest call that we will have because you owe me money, So how can we address this kind of things? No. But in these kind of cases, what we try to do is not only say, hey, you owe me money, so when you are going to pay me, is also why don't you pay me? So what is the reason of the debt behind that? And probably it's because, for example, in telcos, no, you didn't resolve that problems. I don't have I have problems with my internet at home every month. So why I should pay you? No? Then you find out that not necessarily is the problem, is a technical problem that you may address. So information is key here. So sometimes it's thinking out of the box in some specific use cases. So you have more information and sometimes you get better results only with information that you have, no?
All right. Okay. So I think that's very, sort of well put. And basically, as soon as you can divert it to a human person who can better deal with frustration until the technology has gotten to the point where you can really do that. And that's very challenging because he also has to know that it's wrong because sometimes humans, like you said at the beginning, someone can be sarcastic and you didn't notice. So what a human can't notice, a robot might. I think I said this to someone. I said, if you have something that's more human-like, you get all the flaws as well, including hallucination, misunderstanding, all these things. So it's you feel like you're getting some. The only difference is that it stays up at night, but it's just a person. That you're gonna get everything you wanted. So, but let's talk a little bit about technology. So, we've really, because it's a very tough thing to make, right? So, and this is a technology conversation, but we really, I think, framed all the different kind of problems that you guys are solving. So we'll talk a little bit about, let's talk directly about architecture and design and things of that nature. The obvious thing is you will be collecting a lot of customer information and sort of like stitching it to the pipeline of the platform. My assumption is that it's a general model that is going to take that into consideration. It'll need to be trained. The model will need to be cleaned. But and that's sort of the standard for for ML solutions. So could you talk a little bit about that and sort of how Amelia is able to, and for the people who are interested in technology or who are watching, deal with these problems and make this happen, because it's interesting.
Yeah. In this case, we have a combination of first a general model, as you say, no? When Amelia is able to understand, I don't know, basic questions, what is her name, what is her creator, or that, whatever, what we call the social dog. And then what we have in another layer is pre-trained models. For example, it's different when we talk about banking than insurance, than telco, and airlines, hospitality, and so on. So based on the experience that we have, what we try to do is like we train already some intents just as a support, because then what we know and what we were discussing before is like every company has their particularity. So based on that, this is a very good thing to have because it accelerates the process of implementation. But then you need some specific phrases or how the customers express themselves in order to include on top of that model.
So we have pre-trained models based on industry.
Exactly.
That sits adjacent to the basic Amelia general solution.
We have the general solution, we have the pre-trained, and then we have the specific training, so to speak. And for instance, another layer is the tropicalization, what we call, because, for example, a word in US probably can be different in Australia or in UK. The same thing happens in Chile comparing to Peru or Colombia or Mexico. So then we have kind of a dictionary depending on the geography that you are. So you can find the differences. So these are the 4 layers of that we have for training. No, the general, then they go for the industry, then for the specifics, and finally probably so you have the country base or
So for the we'll go backwards from the most superficial layer. If we talk about the layer that's geolocated, there's a level of granularity that you can do. You can argue, even though it would be a sort of a silly argument, that you can have a layer for each person, that's specifically the way they talk. And that's the most, it might actually end up being true eventually. We just don't have technology for it. But just to get to the actual question, what is the radius of that particular model at that layer? What does that mean? Like, is the radius the size of the country or the size of the town? Does that make sense?
Makes total sense, and depends on the company. Depends on what we're going to do. Some people, experience based, we usually go for the country level because sometimes the cities is very small. So, AI at the end of the day is an statistic model. So I'm so sorry, I too simplistic. No, so just to put it in simple words, it's not like that. I'm so sorry. Apologize first. But at the end of the day, it's a sample. So if we want to be very effective, let's use the sample. And the sample is going to be more country-based rather than city-based. So that's more or less the explanation behind it.
Okay, got it. And is that because it only produces valuable results at that scale, or because so it takes that much data to actually get you? what you're looking for, and you do this per organization. So 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 what happens if an organization doesn't have enough data? If it takes that much data countrywide to get a valuable set, then what happens if an organization? I would assume that there are certain sizes of organizations you cannot deal with because they just don't have the amount of data you need to provide the kind of.
We start with something. We start with the general and the industry and the specifics. So let's start with the methodology that we have. Let's start small, quick, and then the customer is going to tell you whatever they are going to tell, and then the idea is to improve. The key thing is how fast you can improve whatever the customer says. So that's the most powerful part that we have in Amelia. So at the beginning we have what we call the hypercare. So we put Amelia in production. So it's released to the customer, and then we start analyzing all the time what the customer says, what are different kind of words, etc., etc. So at the beginning of the first 1, 2 to 3 months, we are able to say, hey, Amelia is good enough to have a very good volume, to have a very good impact. It doesn't mean that that's all, folks. There is no more work to do. No, obviously, as any IT solution, so there is a continuous improvement. There is a customer changes, organization changes, and why Amelia shouldn't change, So that's more or less the methodology we have.
So so that's the layer that you see or you hit initially, and the second, I forgot what the second layer was, or the layer below that. What was that?
So we have the general, then we have the industry based.
The industry. Okay, and then for the industry, right? Got it. So for the industry based, and this is so that I guess my question there is, how do you go about collecting that? So is it amalgam of a bunch of companies that you've interacted with, and you say, okay, we're going to stuff this in here because it matches? Or did you go out and collect it in general from the web or from a different source?
Good. There is a combination of, first is based on experience on previous customers, so based on what we have trained. So I already have 6 years in the company. So I have 6 years of experience with different customers, with different industries and so on. In the same way we have different kind of NLU architects, what we call. So these guys are the ones who really put an architecture of intents and data and so on, and then train the model, and then create the model first. And based on that, they start improving the model. So that's basically what they do. And but also what we have is people like me that has done many work before Amelia in different kind of industries, not necessarily in the AI world, but they know the processes. What kind of processes do we have in banking, in telco, in hospitality, etc., etc. So based on that knowledge, also we create. So we have, okay, how many intents or how many data do we have in this model? Okay, we have X amount. Okay, I think that we need to increase for this 10 or 100 or whatever the amount is of intents that we need to put on top of that. So that's more or less what we do. So this is a combination, previous experiences in terms of customers, but also previous experiences in terms of personally speaking, what kind of processes what we have seen before.
And also to keep all this in context, are you consistently piping in or what's your cycle of improvement? Is it just the model will continue to improve based on having more and more data? And then obviously there are mechanisms to make sure that the data that you're getting is net improving the accuracy of the model. Like, for example, you talked at the top of the hour about deduplication, right? So how do you first of all, is it a live process where you just plug it in and it has its way of making sure that it improves? And then the second question is whether you plug it in or not, what are the mechanisms to ensure that the quality of the model isn't affected by the new information to an inordinate degree, right? So something like an airline or some other, you may have a new customer that's such a big airline or such a big XYZ that the amount of information is double what you had before. So now everything is about this as opposed to just in general, right? I'm making an assumption, but it is a stats model, so it's really about how much of this, what's the average, and the average is skewed in one direction. So how do you get the average not to be skewed in one direction or the other? How do you make sure that it doesn't hallucinate because of duplication? So how do you deal with all these possible issues to make sure the model stays general, regardless of who it's interacting with?
This is more or less what you say. So this is a general. At the end of the day, it's going to be a general model, and this is something that we, as a company, we understand. This is an accelerator. This is not going to be just a plug and play. That's not possible because every company has their particularities. So what we say is like we put the general model plus the industry model, and then what we do is like we talk with the customer, saying what is the in terms of comparison of what we have versus what they have, no? What are the gaps, and based on that we train the model based on the different the differences that we have.
Right. So you separate it out and you give it to them, right? And then it's theirs, and then sort of you can replace the base, but the base is managed by Amelia, and then put back, but it's not like directly integrated. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. At the end of the day, what we do is like a specific implementation for every customer. What we use is accelerators or assets that we already have. Yeah.
Well, Victor, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for answering all the questions.
No problem at all. I enjoy it.
I hope so. I've tried to make sure it was interesting for you, and I've tried to simplify it as much as possible, because I feel like this is one of those things that you could talk about for hours and hours, but and you'll barely understand. But I tried to sort of make it easy to digest, and thank you for playing along. So I appreciate it.
No. I appreciate the invitation. As I said, so I really enjoy it. I enjoy talking about these topics because you have so many stories behind, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting because you learn a lot from companies. This is for people like me. So I really enjoy this.
Where can they find you?
Well, so if you have any questions, please go through my LinkedIn profile, Victor Garayar. Write to me there. Sometimes, depending on where I am more, so I'm faster than other days.
Yeah.
So just reach to me. So I think the best way is going through LinkedIn, and then based on that we can talk about any topic and so on. If you have any questions about your current initiatives, or how can AI or virtual agents can leverage from the company, or how impact what they can make, and so on. So happy to talk, as you could see. I love the topic, so I can talk many hours about it.
Oh, Victor, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much, Chris. See you soon.
If you like what you saw, take a look at the description. You'll see segments. You'll see the full podcast. Go take a look. Please go listen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you later.